Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The Spa in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is Freedom Fighter. Amazing people like you share ways to ensure your freedom physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-given knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and giving a voice of freedom to those who are also looking to have their best life. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Kimberly Spencer, an award-winning, high-performance, trauma-informed coach and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and the founder of crownyourself.com, helping visionary leaders transform their self-limiting stories, build their empire, stand out fearlessly, and make the income and impact they deserve. From her entrepreneurial beginnings at 5 selling bags of glitter water to her neighbors, to becoming an award-winning screenwriter, certified Pilates instructor, Miss Congeniality, and 6-time WAGO Health Activist Award nominee, Kimberly is proof that it's better to make your own mold than to conform to someone else's. Her work has been featured on Netflix, the CW, ESPN, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and NPR, Thrive Global, CNBC, and Forbes. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Diane. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, thank you for being here. I love your whole crown yourself. And, so many times people look outside of themselves to get that validation. But when you actually claim it for yourself and you talk about choosing to rule, how did you kind of go on that trajectory?
Dragging and screaming. Definitely kicking and screaming for the first 10 years. I was very blessed to grow up in an entrepreneurial home with 2 entrepreneurial parents. So I saw the hustle, the work doesn't come unless you're doing the work. That sort of mentality, that mindset that is not always cultivated with those who don't see that on a regular basis. So that was my normal. But what was also my normal was growing up in a home with an addict. My dad was an addict for most of my life. And that experience really allowed me to see, for survival purposes, to adopt a fear, fight, flight, freeze sort of mindset and a victim mindset that everything was happening to me. Everything was reactive. It was this person's fault, or this person made me do this person, because I saw my dad doing that. Right. And so, and his excuse was, oh, this happened so that I had a beer. And so this happened. And so I grew up with that mentality and a mindset that really supported excuses and looking externally and having you be at the whim of the external circumstances that happen in your life. And which was an interesting dichotomy, because simultaneously I saw the entrepreneurship side as well, where that internal bit was brought forth. So fast forward a few years later, I am screenwriting in Los Angeles. I'm side hustling as a Pilates instructor. I'm wrapping up a 10-year battle with bulimia that I overcame with no psychological or medical intervention. And because I was in a new environment, which is just a testament to what, the personal development standard, that you are most like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Right. Because I was in a new environment, I was teaching 10 different people, 10 different, 6 days a week, and working on transforming stories through screenwriting. So I was reading all of these different stories and experiencing all these different stories from my clients. And I started to question this story that I'd had of being a victim, of being broken and damaged, and that exception. And I started to really question that. And in the process, I started to also heal from my bulimia, because I started to take ownership of instead of blaming my dad and blaming my childhood, I was like, wow, it was never my dad shoving my finger down my throat. That was me. I had to take ownership of my choices. And so I was in that space and working with so many different types of people that by seeing all these different belief systems, and that's why I love podcasts like yours, Diane, because you are exposing people to different belief systems that allows people to question, like, is this belief system serving me for where I want to go? Or is this going to keep me stuck in the past and what I'm used to and what I'm comfortable with? And I started getting really uncomfortable with uncomfortable questions. Like, I wondered what triggered me to binge and purge. Like, I wondered what, emotions led to that. So instead of it being a personal identity thing, I started to question it for being my own, my strategy, my subconscious strategy, as I call it. Right. And I recovered from bulimia with no psychological or medical intervention, ended up walking in Miss California, USA, didn't win, but I went out in front of the judges in a bathing suit for the first time in front of 4,000 people. And I knew in that moment that I crowned myself, that like, I didn't need anybody's external validation for the work that I had put in internally for my body. I knew that I loved my body. I loved like what I'd been able to transform it into. I loved how it looked. I loved its shape and everything. Well, I also didn't know that these subconscious lessons that we have, sometimes we think that it's new level, new devils. And so I had this success with my body and jumped into a business relationship for my e-commerce company. And I thought, oh, this is different. So I didn't apply the same subconscious success strategy to my business. And the problem is that ended up like crashing and burning, in my opinion, because 3 months before I was supposed to get married to my husband, my business partner said he wanted to buy me out. Like, this was right after I'd pitched it to the first round of Shark Tank auditions. We were seeking venture capital and angel investing. I was devastated. I put 2 years of my life into this company for practically free and worked myself to the bone, was waking up at 3 a.m. like in panic attacks because of customer emails and like needing to reply back. And it was a really unhealthy relationship that I was in. I didn't realize that it mirrored the exact same relationship that I struggled with my own eating disorder. Mm-hmm. And so I got into business and financial bulimia. I was bought out of that business. And then I came up with the idea for Crown Yourself on my honeymoon, because we signed the buyout agreement 3 weeks before I got married, jetted off on my honeymoon with my amazing husband, Spike, and landed in Italy. And I was like, what do I do now? And that was when I came up with the idea for Crown Yourself. And that was when I started to lean into this idea of holistic success and fulfillment, and it starting from within.
I love it. It's so great. I mean, I remember when, you and I were in a class together and you were talking about, the sparkle and, just about your energy, and you talk about the people who are around you, and you and Spike have such great energy together and you support each other in so many great ways, and it's just amazing to see. And I love that you share the ups and downs of it, right? Because people a lot of times see the end product and they don't necessarily see the journey and what that actually looks like. And so in your book you wrote The Start, and that's like the journey of entrepreneurship. What are people missing when they start that journey?
I think your business is the greatest reflection. The two things are the greatest mirrors that you'll ever have in your life: your own business and your children. Those two mirrors you cannot escape from, because the decisions are always on you. And when your business is not producing results, just like when your kids are misbehaving, you're like, ooh, there's that behavior. Oh, there's that thing that I'm avoiding. There's that thing that I'm not taking care of. There's that thing that I'm not taking ownership of or being responsible with. Those pieces are really like entrepreneurship and parenting are the two greatest personal development journeys you can ever choose to go on.
Agreed.
And especially with entrepreneurship, like, it's the mindset piece that typically we like to gloss over. And I did this in my e-commerce company. We got a publicist, we had a social media marketer, we had a website designer, but we didn't have a coach. And because we didn't have a coach, my business partner and I started our business with an idea of what we wanted to create. We thought we were on the same page. And this is like so many marriages and other relationships, because it all the lessons cross-pollinate. We thought we were on the same page. We thought we wanted the same thing. We thought the same because we thought we wanted the same thing. But the way that we made decisions was very, very different. And so in the process of making all these decisions that you do on a daily basis with your business, we started to have conflicts early on. And so had we had a coach that guided and created basically the subconscious structure of our business, of your values, of your decision-making strategies, of what's going to motivate you at the end of the day, when you're like, I don't want to send another gosh darn email. Like, I just want to have a glass of wine and relax. But instead you're like, I know I got to send this email. So in that space, like, had we had someone guiding us and our own mindset of the structure that we were creating, the unconscious structure of the entity of our business, not the LLC, not like the pragmatic, practical steps, but that like underlying je ne sais quoi that kind of gets put into your business, I don't think we would have run into the struggles, or we probably wouldn't have been partners in the first place, because we would have recognized how different we were in how we made decisions, in our leadership styles, and in what we ultimately wanted for the business. And knowing that, I then put that into Crown Yourself when I first started Crown Yourself. But I also didn't realize that because I had these values of ownership and authenticity, that I had to lead those. So for the first year and a half in my business, in my coaching business, I didn't make any money because I was preaching all of these really great values, and I was doing all this great surface stuff of like fun photo shoots, and I had the great domain name and I had the great name, but I didn't have the underlying leadership embodiment of the values that I was preaching that my business was to have, which was full ownership, which means also owning your, stuff. And also that authenticity. I was so ashamed of the experiences that I'd gone through that I didn't allow that to come through. I thought that meant that I was a failure, and I didn't want anybody to see that. So I had this like perfect image of like who I thought I wanted to be, but it wasn't anywhere as real as like what I bring to the table now, 6 years in. Obviously, I figured some things out, but it started with actually embodying as a leader the values that I wanted to bring to the table through my business and for others.
Right. Well, that is so important, because there can be all the glossy things that look great, but when we don't look underneath the surface to be like, who are we actually claiming to be? Who is it? Like, what are the pitfalls? And, it reminds me of Les Brown. One of, his quotes is, you can't see the full picture when you're in the frame, right? When you're in it, you don't always see all of it. And that's the beauty of having coaches and consultants, is they see some of the things you don't see. And that can really, expedite what you're doing and where you are on your path. And it can make a really big difference in how you're moving forward. I love just how brave you are in terms of just sharing, the bulimia. Like, people don't necessarily like to share some of these things in their past, but you have also drawn, this conclusion or this similarity between that and your business. In fact, you mentioned about, bulimia in your business. What were some of the ahas in that? Because, there's always like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. And so there was this thread that was going through not only with your body, but your environment and your business. What were some of the insights in that?
So the insights are also the parallels as well. So like, one of the insights of the things that caused such a struggle in the initial stages of my business was I was so scared of rejection. I was doing all these wonderful, fancy things, but I wasn't actually asking for sales. And so it's that one piece of that one thing that is actually the lifeblood of your business, which is sales, that we all got to do. And I wasn't asking for sales, and I wasn't building relationships. I also didn't have a process that I was following. So one of the things that helped me recover from bulimia was I found the process of Pilates. It was a process that made me feel good. Mm-hmm. And in the initial stages of my business, I was adapting everybody else's strategies of like what worked. So that was it mirrored the exact same thing that I did when I was younger, of trying all of these different diets, which are basically strategies that people think that are going to work to help their body be what they want it to be. But ultimately, you got to find what works best for you. And that was what I found through my businesses, when I instead of leaning into what these so-called experts were saying of like what their strategy was, of what, here's your step-by-step marketing funnel. And I was like, this feels like $4,000 pack. Like, it didn't make me feel good. It was the same like with going on diets that didn't make me feel good, where I was like, I don't actually feel good doing this, and thus it wasn't sustainable. And so when you think of business, and same with your relationship with your body, you're in relationships with these ideally for the long term. And so you want to find strategies that make you feel good, not in the sense that they keep you in your comfort zone, but that they feel aligned. They feel like, you feel it working, but you also feel that alignment in a sense that it's not something that some expert told you to do, but you're like, oh, I love this piece, and I love this piece, and I love this piece, and that's what I'm going to put into what it is that I'm creating. And instead of going with like, it needs to follow this exact formula or else you fail. So that goes into the whole perfectionist belief system of like, it's either 100% or nothing. And I work with a lot of those high achievers in my business, because I used to have that mindset of like, it was either giving it 100% or giving it nothing. And I was like, well, what if 90% is actually good enough? Like, what if 90%, I take that and then I add my 10% of my own thing, and then that's actually what makes it feel good.
Right. So when you're looking at like the overall formula and you're finding out like what's authentic to you, when you look at all the different pieces that come into making a life, making a business, really seeing what brings you joy, like all of the things are associated with that. What do you think is the distinction between, what you call people who cave versus climb?
So with people who cave, it's those who are beholden to a strategy, and they try to somebody else's strategy that they think that that's what's going to be. And then they just double down on it, even when it's not working. And then they double down harder on it because it's not working. And I unfortunately have heard and seen some people in the coaching industry shame people for then, oh, it must be you. It's not our strategy. And I'm like, no, maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe the strategy just doesn't fit with the person. Versus climbing, there's a level of adaptability and flexibility in looking at what pieces work for you. So it doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater, but like, what pieces are really working for you? What pieces are you seeing a conversion on? And what pieces are you not? What makes you, what things also are making you feel good? Like, you're at, like, not feel good as in the sense of an ego boosting, I feel like I'm, creating these beautiful Canva images or doing photo shoots or something, but like things that actually push you in a way that you're like, I feel like, having a really authentic 30-minute call with somebody without an intention of selling, but just naturally being on it. That's what feels good. Or I feel good going on a podcast interview. Like, I have clients who are like, I just don't feel good on social media. I was like, I know 6 and 7 figure business owners who are barely on social media. Doesn't mean you have to be on it, but it comes down to looking at what really feels right for you from an alignment perspective and noticing it in the moment. So you're going to notice, and it's a feeling, it's not a feeling of comfort. It's a feeling of courage. It's a feeling of, oh, this actually energizes me. So let me clarify. I want to clarify what feeling good is, because sometimes feeling good can feel complacent. It can feel so comfortable that you're actually not creating progress.
Right. Or a distraction.
Or a distraction, right? And so feeling good, when it's aligned and it's a strategy that feels good, that allows you to climb, it activates your courage. You're very clear on how you show up, and you show up with intention. You are energized. Actually, you feel more energy doing it. It's the same with if you eat certain foods and you're like, oh, eating a nice spinach salad, I feel much with like some chicken, I feel much more energized than that, mac and cheese. So looking at what are those side dishes, those mac and cheese pieces that may not be feeling so good inside of your body, the body of your business, versus what are those pieces that actually energize you and make you feel vibrant, alive, and courageous, because we actually feel more alive when we're actually leaning into our courage muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, I so see that so much, and I love that feel good piece, because there's a difference between like kind of the fluff of feeling good versus like that real deep internal. It's like almost listening to your intuition, your knowing, like when you feel energized because you're on the right path and you're like stepping into what is truly authentic for you. And then when you're in that place yourself, you can then see that much more clearly in other people to then guide them to be able to discover that and see that. And it might be right there in front of them, but they're not seeing it because, a lot of different reasons, right? That they're not seeing it. But, when you're looking at it from that holistic space, you can actually really see the difference on this. And I think part of why this is such an important conversation at this time, in the world in the last couple of years, people have been delegating so much of their life, their belief, their health to, so-called experts and people outside of themselves without taking a breath to see, does this resonate with me and my family? Like, is this true for me? And to really start looking at, how you are moving forward. We always, in our camp, we kind of joke about how we didn't participate in the pandemic, right? It wasn't in alignment with us as far as how we wanted to spend our life and what were our values and what we were about. And, there was a lot of fear that came in that. And so when you can recognize fear things that are happening in the world, you have to look at it within yourself and go, is this true for me? Is this authentic for me? And whether it is or it isn't, what are your strategies to move through that and what it's going to look like? And so, a lot of people spent more time at home or working from home and had a different experience with their clients. And, speaking of home, and this is actually one of my favorite things to ask, is because we create our own environment, what is your favorite room in your home and why? Because we live differently in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our office. What is that for you?
Oh gosh. I'm currently in transition of homes. Like right now I'm in an Airbnb in Austin, Texas. And I mean, for me, I don't consider home to be a place. Like my home is when I'm with my family and my kids. And for my work home though, I do need some privacy, but I love being in the vibrancy of a coffee shop. So I consider the whole world my home because travel is a high value for me and my family. But like the vibrancy of being in a coffee shop and having that focus of it's me and my laptop and I'm on it, obviously not during a podcast interview, but during or a client session, that's like in the privacy of my home space. But and in my office, which I love my corner office, but the where I feel most at home is like out in the space of the world, but also kind of doing my own thing in my own bubble. So like being in the world, but not of the world. I love that energy.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that is so great. I love it because, some people can be distracted by the noise of a coffee shop, but then other people are energized by it. So it's so important to know what is your space and how you focus and where you are inspired. Like if you are, inspired by a certain space or energy that's there. So that's fun. I love that.
Yeah, I'm also inspired because typically if I go to a coffee shop to get work done, my kids aren't there. Like my kids are my greatest inspiration, but they're also a really nice distraction. So at my home, I know they're there and they're playing and I can hear them. And then I'm like, okay, are they okay? But if I'm in a completely separate building, I can't hear the screams or the ow wows.
Yes, I love it. So another saying that you like to say is the future is gold for the bold. Talk about that.
So it comes back to that energy of courage, because doing anything that's going to be of significance will require you taking big, bold action. It will require you stepping outside of your comfort zone, asking for help from people who you don't think are quote unquote maybe on your level, or that you're ready to ask for help from. And I've actually found the opposite to be true, is when you ask for help from some people who are incredibly successful, they will reach out a hand if they've seen you do it, participating, doing the hustle, getting not hustle in the form of 24/7, but just you're putting in the work, you're consistently showing up. They will extend a hand out that's very, very generous, but it's up to you to have the courage to ask. And one of my favorite quotes is from Oprah. And she says, in life, you get what you have the courage to ask for. And so the future, it can be incredibly gold and beautiful and rich and vibrant, but you have to look at what are those big, bold requests? What are those big, bold asks? So I was, to give you an example, I was recently on a call with a friend of mine, and we were just discussing masterminding kind of back and forth. And I said, what's your big ask? What would be something that you would really love to have happen? And she thought for a moment. She's like, do you know Kelly Clarkson? I was like, no, not yet. But she said, well, I have a bee. And I said, well, I was in screenwriting. Let me just reach out to a couple people and see who knows. And And I reached out to two different producers, and one of them was like, "Oh my gosh, the title! Oh my gosh, the subject matter! Oh my gosh, yeah, this is exactly the project I've been looking for." Had she not made that ask, I wouldn't have made that connection, which not only benefited me because it made me feel like really happy and amazing, because we always feel good when we do something for somebody else, but it also made me feel like it also satisfied another person's need, and it satisfied her big desire. So that's what asking for support and making big, bold asks really can do. And now her movie's being made, her book is being made into a movie. It's amazing.
That is amazing. I love that. So what's one of your big asks these days?
My big ask is currently asking for a house. The perfect house that we're looking for out here in and around Austin. That's my big ask of the universe, because we're looking to move from LA. So that's my big ask. So if you know anybody who's selling a nice 5-bed, 4 or 5 bath out in and around Austin on about 10 acres, hit me up.
Okay. Well, you know what? I actually might have that connection. So
oh my God.
I just met up with some friends of ours who moved there, and they are in the real estate world. And so they may be a good connection for you. So we'll talk offline.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you.
Yes.
See, that's what happens when you make people ask.
I know. It's amazing. I love this. So I know that people are going to want to connect with you. And, one of the things I love, you also have your own podcast, The Princess and the Bee. And I love the bee. I love all the different bees that you have. It's business, it's buys, it's body, it's babies, it's bank accounts. It's like all the big bees. So, you have a lot of different discussions as this as well. I'd love for you to share not only how people can get in contact with you, but what was like a big aha that came out of one of your podcasts?
A big aha that came out of one of my podcasts was recently a couple episodes that I've been doing on the fears of the circumstance of the recession, that like choosing, I love what you said, you chose not to like participate in the pandemic. Like, I'm just choosing not to participate in a recession. Like, I'm like, I didn't participate in the one in '08. My business did incredibly well as a Pilates instructor. Like, I didn't participate in the last one. I'm not going to participate in this one. And I'm going to have a strategy, of course, and a plan and structure, and like any smart business owner would. And I'm also going to have epic trust and faith in what it is that I'm building, in the services that I'm providing, and in the fact that actually in a recession, they're more needed than ever, is guidance, clarity, courage, these actions. And so being able to ask for support and reach out for support, because most people in a recession like recess versus expand. And actually, if you think about it, every single major billion-dollar company, like 70% of them, were created in the recession of '08. So all the ones that we use today, Uber, Lyft, like freaking Facebook blew up. Like it was around, but it like blew up during the recession. And so if we look at that, like what could you create that could be possible in the next decade, so that in the next decade, because recessions come, like we've been through a few of them, like in the next decade, when the next one happens, people are looking to your business and being like, OMG, she created it in a recession. I can create mine in this one. And that's how we keep expanding. So I just, in choosing to lean into expansion instead of recessing because the rest of the world says you're supposed to be recessing.
I love it. But it's so important, just your outlook, right? It's like, if you just choose to look at it from a different vantage point and you see it in a different way, that's how ideas spark. That's how we thrive. This is how different things happen. And it really makes a difference. And, as you know, our theme for this season are people who choose freedom. So in what way are you choosing freedom for yourself and or your clients?
I am choosing freedom by choosing what reality I'm choosing to buy into. The story that you like, we all choose to buy into stories. Most of them are BS, and a lot of them can be incredibly disempowering when we choose. But if you consciously are aware of like, oh my gosh, I'm buying into this BS story that's like not empowering, not serving me. What if I just chose a different story? And then how would I show up if I chose that story as my new reality? And then consistently leaning into those new choices day in and day out, that's how you create freedom Not, you don't, you're not in a space of freedom if you're enslaved to other people's stories. You're just not. So if you consciously are aware of the stories that you're actively buying into, and the easiest way to see this, the easiest way is if your stories are conscious, it will manifest happily. You'll see happy results. You'll see results that are, really good. If your stories are deeply unconscious, you'll see what's manifesting unhappily. And so if things are manifesting unhappily, that's just a signal of, oh, okay, what is the story that I'm telling myself about this, and this circumstance, this issue, this struggle, this challenge? Because when you can assess and reassess that story, then you'll transform it. Then it'll become conscious, and then you'll have the ability to choose to create conscious results that are happy and manifesting in an empowered way. So that's my story.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So great. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for just all of your wisdom, your sparkle, everything that you're bringing to the planet. We so appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you so much, Diane. And you did ask, where could people find me? If you want to find out more, just head over to The Princess and the Bee. It's everywhere podcasts are listened to, or go to crownyourself.com and click the button that says work with me if you want to just have a conversation about your own growth expansion into courage and confidence.
Perfect. Sounds great. And for our audience out there, thank you for being here with us. Please share this. It's so important now for people to really claim who they are, to really stand into their boldness. And, hopefully this is the message that you needed to hear today, and for you to pass it on to someone else as well. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.